Good to have everybody here today as we talk about accounting, multi-entity accounting, and cutting through financial complexities with an ERP for tribes. So let's get into this. Today, our webinar is being brought to you with our partners over at Arctic IT. Matt and John will be our presenters today. This session will be recorded for unlimited viewing. You'll find it on tribalhub.com, and you will also get an email after this webinar that will have a link that you can rewatch it or even share with anybody else on your team who might not have been able to make it today. There we go. All right, a couple of learning objectives to take away from this webinar. Just kind of keep these in mind when you're listening to John and Matt go through their presentation. I would definitely say if you have questions, put those in the chat box, put them in the Q&A feature. We definitely want to make sure your questions are answered today. These guys are here to hear those questions and to present to you. So let's use that time if we can. A couple of upcoming webinars for the month of June here at TribalHub. And just a reminder, what's up at TribalHub? We have our 25th anniversary coming up this September. Super excited about it. It's going to be a great conference. We've already gotten, quite a few people registered. We're trending above what we were last year. Super excited about it. So if you need more information or have questions, reach out to somebody on our team or check out the website. And with that, I am going to turn things over to you, Matt.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Michelle. And we are excited to be meeting with you all today. We started with a quick little intro and then dive into our great content. All right, we are very excited to be with you all today to be talking about multi-entity accounting and going along with that, just also those complexities that come with more and more the idea of what we're looking at in the tribal space in regards to just managing across all the different government, gaming, and tribal enterprise entities and coming up with best ways to streamline that process and even look for cost savings across maybe shared services and having the technology to really help support that. Thank you for the introductions already, Michelle. And so without further ado, John and I will be are glad to be kind of your host walking through this today. And beyond being the Director of Business Application Sales, I've spent most of my career as an ERP solution architect and consultant with Arctic IT, working in and amongst the tribal nations and their enterprises that they own over the last 18 years. And John Wainwright joining me today, he is one of our gurus, just helping make sure that our ERP customers are getting the most and using the most effectively, helping solve solutions in and amongst our ERP deployments, especially after they've gone live. So great to have John joining us today and providing his subject matter expertise.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
Right, so our agenda is really to start with and talking about just some of the current challenges in front of tribal CFOs and the ways that things are shifting for us and needing to adopt to new compliance related items, and also look for ways of using our limited resources in both people and financial resources across our government and enterprises. And then we'll really dive into who we are at Arctic IT and as such, the work that we've done to really help provide a solution that can meet these needs, and then actually demonstrate the multi-entity accounting solution specifically, leaving some time at the end for Q&A. Throughout, though, as Michelle said, please feel free to add questions into the chat, and then we can either address those verbally throughout, or even might be able to answer those directly in the chat throughout the presentation. Right. In taking a look at really what are some of the challenges that are forcing or causing your tribal finance leaders to take a look at a different solution. And not only in solutions from a technology perspective, but also in service delivery that we have in and amongst our financial teams. And some of that is starting with that idea that more and more we need to make sure that we're providing our tribal council and our leadership with great information more quickly to be able to make decisions. If you're consistently waiting 6 weeks after the close of a period to get all the consolidated information from your multiple entities to be able to bring together consolidated reporting across your enterprises, as well as your gaming enterprises, your non-gaming, and the government level itself, that can really take a while. And more we're seeing a demand from leadership to get access to that information more and more quickly to be able to make important decisions and budget determinations. And that is difficult because for most organizations, they have been operating under different accounting solutions across. It's very common for us to be meeting with a tribal finance leader where they have a specific solution in for the government side that is very much geared towards maybe grant accounting, then a completely different accounting system at the casino and the gaming operations, and then maybe multiple accounting systems then across the different types of economic development businesses that are being run, and just the complexity of managing all of that. And getting that information together and supporting that across the different IT departments that are involved in it just really adds to that complexity and cost over the life cycle of those systems. But beyond that, we've all been constrained in the resources. I don't think we've had a conversation with a tribal finance leader recently that didn't say that they were kind of understaffed right now and would love to implement new technology, but they just don't have they're having a hard time keeping up to begin with. And so some of that is really starting to then look towards, are there ways to make those individuals more productive, but also maybe start sharing some of those resources, especially in IT, maybe a shared service type resource, or in finance, being able to provide some of those services across the different entities, rather than to be able to maybe make your teams more efficient as you're processing that, and having the solutions to do that, so your teams aren't juggling 5 or 6 different finance applications in order to get that done. But as technology has continued to trend towards moving to cloud solutions, for lots of great reasons, like the digital service and remote work expectations, and needing to be able to shift from working from home or on the road, but still getting things done, right? The cloud provides so many opportunities there, but then there's that concern and that compliance risk where, what does that mean for my data? If my data is in the cloud, whose is it? Is it something that we're still in control of, even though it's on someone else's data centers? What does that look like? And truly that data sovereignty concerns. All of these things combined are just some of the reasons that we hear most common now, and concerns that people have, and the challenges in front of them while they're considering how to move forward with technology to help support their financial operations. And a big reason for Arctic IT being here today and presenting that to you is because of the experience that we have working in the tribal finance community for a number of years. The reason why we are called Arctic IT is in seeing some of the sled dogs and mountains and stuff throughout our presentation here, is that we were born in Alaska, as we like to say. The company originated in Anchorage, Alaska, and we are a proud subsidiary of the Doyon Alaska Native Corporation. So being Native owned ourselves, we've had the just the privilege and honor to work with tribal entities across the United States for over the last 18 years, and with a specialty in a number of things, but in particular in the finance and the community engagement side. And with that, we provide almost all of that technology on the basis of foundation of the Microsoft platform. where Microsoft is creating what we'll be talking about today, Dynamics 365 platforms. They are the developers of those, along with Microsoft 365 and the Power Platforms and a lot of other the great Microsoft tools. But then Microsoft turns to Arctic IT as a trusted partner to then bring that industry expertise and to help our customers in the across the tribal enterprises to make the best use of that technology. So we have highly some of the highest levels of certification Microsoft has available, including Microsoft MVP awards and things across our team to be able to take the best of the Microsoft technology and tailor that through implementation and development for our customers, specifically in the tribal enterprise space. And that experience isn't just in Alaska, as you see here, where we have quite a few customers across Alaska. The vast majority of our employees, like John and myself, are in the lower 48, as we call, from up in Alaska, and working with tribal entities across the United States. With our biggest physical office, being in Plano, Texas, where we provide the 24/7 support for our customers. As I said earlier, across this last 18 years, we've had the immense privilege of working with tribal nations and their for-profit entities across the United States. And with that, we are frequently having conversations at TribalNet, at NAFOA, and other areas, just helping to understand just some of the headaches that tribal finance leaders are dealing with, and tailoring our implementation and our solutions from Microsoft to help meet and address those needs. And as such, we're excited to dive into and talk to you more about the Microsoft solution set and how that can really address those multi-entity across the tribal enterprise and government to really help bring a lot of that together. And that really starts with the platform itself. Whenever you're looking at an accounting system, at its core, there's going to be things that are very important, right? How are accounts payable payments processed? What does our reporting look like, and things like that are very focused oftentimes on those functional availability, those functions and the availability of those inside the accounting system. And obviously those are very important, but having a deeper understanding of what is the platform itself that it's deployed on, especially when you're looking at a cloud solution, what sort of benefit does that also provide? That's why we are so excited, and why we've built our careers on Microsoft, is because of the Microsoft cloud solutions. It really takes beyond what's just normally available in a financial system and makes that available and expands upon that throughout the entire ecosystem. So that might start with things like Office and the Microsoft Office products, being able to, right from inside of Outlook, for instance, see what a vendor balance is, or get a quick summary using Copilot on what's going on with the customer, for instance, without having to leave Outlook, or the ability to directly interact with your data in a live fashion from within Excel, because all finance professionals enjoy Excel one way, shape, or form. Again, without having to leave Excel or do little convoluted file save as CSV imports or things like that. Just really making that all work together within that Microsoft ecosystem. Then making sure that as your needs changed, you're not locked into just what's available within the financial system itself, but having the tools to be able to create new apps with drag and drop functionality, to create workflows that extend beyond the accounting system itself, to interact with other systems, to bring in advanced mobile functionality for a unique need that your organization might have without writing a single line of code. All supported within the innovation, the Microsoft Power Platforms that are available there. And being able to securely integrate with so many other systems with the full-featured API and Azure integration tools, allowing you to use connectors that are available. So you don't have to, again, you don't need to be writing code. You're just kind of mapping to other systems with available connectors, utilizing the business logic and security, all part of the Microsoft Cloud Platform to ensure the security and confidentiality of the data, but being able to interact with other systems in an automated way to just bring in data, to interact with your data, and to be able to just streamline the processes across your organization. But then finally, at its core is understanding that on top, supporting Dynamics 365, which is the accounting solution we'll be looking at today, is that underlying security and infrastructure of Microsoft Azure. So you're world leading in the cybersecurity realm and the functions that are available through there, and making sure that you're always on the latest version, with updates a couple times a year, that's providing a lot of additional functionality without the headaches of major upgrades or falling behind in things and having to invest in updated on-premise infrastructure. Just keeping that going, you're fully supported with Azure high availability to make sure that your data is replicated across geographies. So if data centers go down, you've got that, in the event of a disaster, right? You've got that true disaster recovery, cybersecurity, everything built into the infrastructure, supporting you going forward without having to worry about that any longer. But then after you really understand the importance of the platform that is supporting the whatever financial system you're using, it then does get into that true business applications and the functionality that's available directly within those. And for Microsoft, their cloud business application suite is called Microsoft Dynamics 365. So throughout this presentation, you'll hear John and I refer to D365 or Dynamics 365. Specifically today, we're talking about some of the key ERP related functions, so finance and accounting and supply chain management. But beyond that, Dynamics 365 supports things like your community engagement, or maybe CRM and customer service on your for-profit side, maybe marketing and player loyalty, engagement. Truly being able to support things like point of sale, or field service and out for working in tribal housing or other areas to take care of work orders that need to be done. A lot of business application functionality is part of that Dynamics 365 suite. But today specifically, we're focused on the finance and supply chain functionality that is enabled through Dynamics 365. That includes, when we talk about finance, right, we are talking about your typical core financials, right? Accounts payable, general ledger, banking, all that stuff as you'd expect. But in addition to that, full project and grant management, all within the application, being able to manage your procurement and AP automation, along with that full inventory and warehouse management lifecycle, all while making sure that you're able to monitor your revenue and receivables and giving you state-of-the-art reporting. It's kind of all of that falls within that umbrella of Dynamics 365 Finance, as we'll be taking a look at here in a little bit. And why specifically this works so well for a multi-entity environment, where you might have both the government as well as your potentially your casino operations and your other for-profit operations in there, is that at its core, Dynamics 365 does support both governmental accounting and for-profit accounting all within one solution. You have different entities within that, and you can have different configurations enabled across those entities to allow you to, within one solution, without having to install different add-ons or deploy multiple versions of it, all within one version of the software, you can have the configuration to support both governmental and for-profit accounting all in one. And then being able to bring all that together with consolidated real-time reporting, that as soon as things are posted in the system, they can be accessed at a consolidated level for users with access across those different entities. And as we talked about earlier, one of those headaches is managing the infrastructure required in the different systems to be running multiple systems throughout the different enterprises, right? So being able to streamline that and have that in one system just reduces the overall administrative overhead immensely across without having to manage the infrastructure and all the different systems at one time. Just bringing down that administrative overhead because of that one system available for those. And where additional compliance is necessary, especially if you have, like at the government level, if you're working within criminal justice related areas, police, other things where you might have some increased level of requirements for that data and what that means across. It is fully supported in what Microsoft calls their government community cloud, and those are increased compliance aspects of their data centers to ensure that they are that your data is compliant and your systems are compliant across a number of the different things that may be of importance to you. Then getting into the functionality itself more in depth is the ease of creating additional entities, especially for those that are going to be very similar. We see this a lot in the economic development realm where you're creating, maybe acquiring some new entities, spinning up some new ones. Some of our customers, right, are operate in the again, the quick service restaurant industry, where they own a number of those, and maybe they're adding on new venues or areas of that are new entities. You can quickly create and copy new ones and just and modify the privileges within those as necessary, but making it easy to spin up new entities and to move forward with the accounting for those. Along those lines, you may have different types of accounts in there, different charts of accounts, like one that's for your government accounting, another one that's for your gaming enterprises, another that is for your economic development enterprises, and being able to share those across the different entities where it makes sense, but keep them separate when the businesses are very different and you need a unique chart of accounts, allows you to have those shared charts of accounts and shared vendors and records like that, so you can track when your different businesses are doing your business with with that same vendor. So you can share where necessary, keep things specific to entities where necessary as well. And then easily be able to manage that entity level security so that users are only accessing the entities that they should be working within, reporting on, and having access to. Secondly, we're seeing folks look more and more at centralizing their procurement, not just with across their enterprises, to really be able to take advantage of some cost effectiveness and just simplify that buying and purchasing process to begin with. And so what we'll see a little bit later is you can create a purchase requisition for multiple entities at one time. For a buyer that's doing that, or people that are looking at that, maybe are buying things for different entities to kind of bring that together. And then as that needs to split out later for purchase orders unique to each entity, it can automate that as well. It also gives you the ability to centralize as much as you would like the payable side of things. We're seeing that being one of the more common places where centralization is taking place. That idea that you could have a single department maybe providing that shared payment services across all of your entities, and having the options within the technology to easily support that to meet the level of centralization you're looking for. And then if you're managing your inventory, like across your different properties or those things, the ability to see cross company, maybe inventory that one entity doesn't have and another one does have, and you automate some of those buying or transfer processes to help you maybe not buy additional things that you don't need if you have other entities that have it, but then manage those due from relationships across those entities to be able to share resources and inventory that you may have. And we mentioned earlier briefly about the consolidated real-time reporting, but truly being on one solution across your entities, one of the greatest benefits of that is for authorized users to be able to quickly see what's going on across our entire enterprise. To be able to bring up some executive dashboards, for instance, for tribal council within just a few clicks of a button, being able to see, what is our monthly revenue looking like at our casino properties, while our budget to actuals on the government side, within just a few clicks in the same report, to be able to get that based on real time. Anything that's posted as of this point can be very impactful for people that are needing to make those decisions on budgets, on procurement, on maybe new capital expenditures, because they can get that real time visibility across all the entities with just a few simple clicks. And then being able to expand upon that with a lot of the Microsoft Power BI as one of those core reporting engines now for Dynamics 365 is there's a lot of great out of the box reports with that, but then giving users, especially users that are really enjoy diving into data and creating new visualizations and stuff, the ability to do that all within Power BI, you're fully embedded inside of Dynamics 365. But also giving the ability to granularly control who should see what. So for instance, in the consolidated financial reports, you can say specifically who can see which departments or which entities. So you can have one report available that when a user opens that report, they're only seeing within that report the entities and the departments or cost centers that they have access to. You're not having to produce 37 different versions of a budget to actual. It could just be one budget to actual across the entities, but based on the user controls there, they're just accessing and seeing the versions of that that are pertaining to them. And we mentioned earlier just that native integration with Excel, that there are times where you may have other entities that for a specific business reason, they really have to be on their own accounting system. Maybe something that is very specific to the type of business that's going on there. And with that, you can very quickly, we'll see later, just integrate some of that, the trial balance information into a consolidated company and run those reports without having to leave Excel and do that, to be able to consolidate in maybe those entities that really just have a unique business requirement to be on a separate accounting system. And being on, a modern cloud platform, again with Dynamics 365, it's that ability to continuously innovate on that, right? We like to say it's the last ERP implementation you ever have to budget for. Maybe that's a stretch, but truly, because of the continuous involvement that Microsoft is bringing to this, multiple times a year there are quite a bit of functionality being released, but there's monthly other updates that are coming out frequently to address, typically monthly, and there may be a specific feature that you're waiting for. You don't want to wait for that by that semi-annual roll-up. Well, go ahead and apply those as necessary, get in, start utilizing those new features with those regular automatic updates, right? And then being able to quickly within your test environment, turn on a new feature, test it, see how it's going to work within your organization and move forward. You're not having to wait for your major upgrades every 2 or 3 years that you're budgeting for, and in large capital upgrades for your on-premise solutions that may require infrastructure updates or SQL Server updates or all that as well. It's really all part of that continuously evolving cloud platform with Microsoft. And then being able to extend that, as we talked earlier, with the Power Platform. Great example of that might be things for your fixed assets, where really wanting to have more control, make it easier for users to be out there and counting their assets, validating that they're where they're supposed to be, taking a picture to prove that, and having that integrate in with the system. The Power Platform easily being able to just adapt what that form should look like, connected directly into Dynamics 365. And now you've got a phone app that can allow people to do that, capture those pictures, you'll bring it right into the system. You're not without any sort of updates needing to be applied or other things. It's just all part of that Microsoft your cloud ecosystem that supports beyond just the accounting functionality to meet some needs for specific processes you may have. And it wouldn't be a Microsoft related presentation if we didn't at least say the word Copilot once. And John, one of the things that he does for a lot of our customers is really stays abreast to some of the new functionality that's coming out, to let our existing customers know so they can take advantage of that. So John, what are we starting to see some of the actual use cases of AI with Microsoft Copilot with Dynamics 365?
Yeah, Microsoft's has made and continues to make a fairly big investment in the AI and Copilot space. They are absolutely all in on it. The last couple of updates that we've seen, the updates are now quarterly. Starting earlier this year, they are now quarterly. So the updates are bigger when they come out and more packed with features than previous. And the last few updates have seen dozens of new features, and in those features are new workspaces, new functionality, a lot of generative AI powered functionality and forms, a lot of Copilot interaction and integration to assist with uh, um, everything from AP and AR and credit and collections and all the way through the system. And more on the roadmap for 2024 as well. So we still have a couple of updates left this year, and I fully expect both of them to be packed with more AI and Copilot features with every update.
Well, thank you, John. In a little bit here, we'll see just a quick, easy version of where some of that's starting to come into play. But as you mentioned, even on the credit and collections aspects, if some of your entities are doing a lot of work with some big customers and they're getting behind in some of their payments, just the ability to quickly summarize as part of the collections process, where they're behind on unpaid invoices and other collections related stuff, truly utilizing that generative AI to summarize what's going on with their account balances in the system, as well as incorporating, maybe your collections languages for what might happen, additional fees or things like that if they continue to remain unpaid, is really simplifying some time that we might have to take to go through and understand that, remind ourselves of everything, and just help utilizing that generative AI in a way that we might not have thought of in the past.
Yeah, and as one example, I was just looking this morning at a new workspace that was included in the last update, and that's something that you mentioned about updates and not necessarily having the same headaches that one would have to expand their system and add new functionality when you're working with a cloud-based solution. It's literally a checkbox for me to enable this new workspace in the system, and it's a credit and collections workspace, and I can go in there and it gives me some generative AI features to show me or to help me determine what customers I might want to look at when I pick a customer, and if that customer's behind on a few invoices. There's literally one click button that I can press and it opens my Outlook and writes an email for me. Dear customer, we've noticed that you are behind on X many invoices in the amount of dollar amount, and please work with us to resolve these. And it writes all of that for you, and then of course you can edit it and send it and everything. But I mean, think of the time savings just in that one feature, and it's free. It was included in the update.
Well, thank you, John. So truly, you can see just with those examples of where the Microsoft Dynamics 365 can bring improvements across your enterprise for real-time reporting, for some of the AI automation and procurement, and other aspects that are continuing to pour into the Dynamics 365 realm. And we've seen that as well with Nucleus Research last year. Did a deep dive study into ERP modern functionality, usability, value across that, and Microsoft was highlighted as really that top there in that magic quadrant, if we want to call it that. And we were excited to see that. We believed it already, but it was nice to see some independent research validate that as well. Now, one of the last things before diving into a quick showcase of the functionality is just understanding that anytime, especially if you're moving from multiple legacy on-premise solutions to the idea of moving to the cloud, we understand that that idea of the security and compliance for your data sovereignty, understanding that that data is yours. It does not belong to Microsoft. You have control over who can see that with some of the tools that Microsoft has enabled with encryptions that only you have the keys for. You can rest assured in knowing that, and this is as almost a year ago now, last time we were able to get these figures published from Microsoft, but that idea that there are over 350 tribal tenants already in the Microsoft cloud with well over 200,000 employees utilizing that functionality across the different tenants there, with over 66 different tribal organizations already utilizing the Dynamics 365. And Microsoft has shown their and has proven that even when subpoenaed, we've seen examples where they're not releasing any of that data. It is your data; you have full control over that, and it's been great to see. And truly, no cloud provider out there is leading the charge for tribal data sovereignty like Microsoft. Okay, so with that, we will stop in the presentation mode here and switch over to a live demonstration of Dynamics 365. So I'm going to switch my screen sharing. Give me just a second here, and you should see.
There we go. We have you.
All right, terrific. Okay, so as I'm logging into Dynamics 365, we see the reference to finance up here. What I have in front of me is my workspace. Now, there's a lot that you can go into how you navigate and the great functions that are available there. But today, specifically, we're diving into just showcasing some of how the multi-entity functionality works within the system. In my upper right-hand corner, I have USMF. That's the acronym for the company entity that I'm working in. But for those that are authorized to access and log into and see multiple entities, you see it's just a matter of selecting on the box up here and moving into a different entity in order to switch over to that. And that really just means it's the default entity that I'm working in. If you're authorized to do so, and you've got those relationships set up between the organizations, the different companies that you're managing, you can process transactions from within one for other entities as well for the business processes that you've been able to do so. And realistically, a lot of that starts at the general ledger itself. The ability to process transactions across entities and have it automate, the intercompany aspect of those. So for time's sake, I've created ahead of time an intercompany general a journal entry here where we're reclassifying some rent that was charged to the one of our funds, our USMF company, the general fund there. That rent was supposed to have been split out, to another entity. It wasn't happening there, so we're just reclassing some of that rent to take it out of our general fund in our government company and putting it into our project company to make that transfer over. So simply, we just have by here selecting the different companies on each line item of that. I can look at the chart of accounts that is in that specific entity, of course, assuming I have access in order to do that. So just one line entry in each company here. Don't have to validate any of the which receivables accounts between the companies we're using, because that's all been configured ahead of time for automation. So by posting this entry, it is going to do two things. It's going to create we see here now the voucher. It's going to first create the entry in the company that I'm in right now, which is USMF. So if I click on the voucher to see what actually posted, we see here, there's that rent expense account that we had here, but then we had the intercompany receivable account between USMF and my other company, which is USSI. So it automatically pulled up that receivable because it was moving that, it was changing where that's being coded. But if I click up here, it sees related vouchers. So without having to leave and switch or log into another company, I click that and it's going to show me, yes, he also created this voucher in the other company. So I can say voucher. And now up at the top, you see it automatically switched me over. And so now I'm seeing the rent expense and the intercompany payable being recorded in the other account. So it is reducing that payable because now we've got that expense. And automatically handles both sides of that while giving me the ability to very quickly see the entry in both systems. And if I decide to go back, see, all I had to do was hit back. I didn't have to switch to another company. It's telling me right at the top, hey, we're switching you back to USMF, just so you're aware that, if you're looking at the transactions, you're going to see those USMF transactions. It just gives you that nice little update because sometimes to make sure you're aware of which company you've switched between when you're taking a look at that. Now, earlier, we also mentioned requisitions and the ability to make purchases across multiple entities at the same time. So if I go into my procurement and sourcing and take a look at my purchase requisitions, in the Dynamics 365 supports full procurement all within one system without add-ons or things necessary here. And my user in this environment is called Julia. And so with Julia here, I can take a look at the purchase requisitions that I've prepared and that aren't completely tied out. And right now, I see that I've created a requisition here that's a specific request. We want some training services for our multiple teams. So you may be, rather than each individual company going out and talking to the in this case my CATS consulting company here to provide those services separately, and maybe there'd be a higher rate or something associated with that. We're talking with them internally. We want them to provide training for our different entities. And so at this point, while I did have one line here for my USMF company, because I'm authorized to do so, right from here, I could come in without changing, and creating a new requisition. I can say that, yes, this is going to be my USSI company. I've got the same department number over there. I also want this to be training services, because they are authorized to procure that as well. Workplace services and training. Maybe for this, we're going to do 8 hours at the $125 a piece. Sometimes that can give you the ability to create some buying power, especially if there are limited purchase amounts to get better prices on something. And where if each entity is normally just doing this on its own, if you can combine that into one purchase that's automatically ready and creating POs for the different entities, it can really help achieve that. And also maybe give you just some of that economies of scale for an individual organization by having centralized procurement, centralized buying, that they can establish those better vendor relationships. You're not having to manage that across multiple entities here. And this was an area where CATS Consulting I did not have shared and available for USSI, but it could allow you to, again, have one purchase agreement, one purchase requisition here across multiple entities, as long as you're authorized to do so without switching. And we talked earlier about accounts payable a little bit as well, and how the system enables a lot of functionality there to facilitate centralized or decentralized, depending upon how that best fits your organization. But I'm just going to quickly take a look at our vendor payments process here. I'm going to go and start a new vendor pay run. So this might be that idea of multi-entity demo, where when I'm starting a pay run, and this could be regardless of the checks or regardless of payment method, where here I'm looking to, if I'm centralized, to create payments across my entities. And we have some options with how you do that. When I come in here to create a payment proposal, there's a number of different options we could select as part of normal processing, but the key ones here for this demonstration is taking a look at the centralized payments. The first thing is whether or not you want to include invoices from other legal entities that you have access to. If I say yes, now it's also going to look at approved and available invoices from other entities that meet my parameters, that are due at this point, that are part of certain vendor groups, whatever that might be, that meet those parameters. But if I did this, this is going to act just like this, more like a central treasury method, where maybe you have one entity that is managing the main bank accounts, and all payments are made from that central bank account, and then you're managing kind of that due to, due from entity balance with the other entities. Or if I say, look, no, each entity is maintaining its own bank accounts, the payments should come from that entity in and of itself, then we could also click this to say propose the separate vendor payments per legal entity. So I go ahead and do that. It's going to look across my legal entities to find unpaid approved invoices that meet my requirements. We see here, for instance, in my USSI, it's going to have that company coming across and utilizing the USSI bank account. But as I come down further, I see I am not processing it from the central company. But that idea, there we go. Let me switch back to USMF. That similar idea here, because of how I had configured my demonstration environment to have those centralized payments coming from USMF, be that same process that we just saw. Create payment proposal, marking those both, pressing OK. We'll be able to see the centralized payments coming in across the multiple entities. Now, there's two aspects here of how centralized AP can really come in. Obviously, the payments are a key portion of that. We'll give this just another second to finish operating. So here we see this. We've got our USMF payments, from that company. We've got other company acronyms here of the DEMF. Got a lot in my USMF here, but we continue to come down and see multiple types of payments being made from the different entities, all coming in as separate payments to be made from the bank accounts associated with those entities. To centralize that payment process, if you want to have one centralized payment department that's kind of running that through, managing that across there to maybe give you, again, that economies of scale, shared service, and really build up that expertise for your accounts payable team and be able to spread that across your entities for better cost savings. And finally, when it comes to the accounts payable side, it's also the how do you process those centralized invoices coming in. And that can often start by having a central invoice capture method. Dynamics 365 does have the invoice automation supported through a tool called invoice capture. And that can do multiple things. It can monitor email inboxes. Maybe if you have AP inboxes for each of your different entities, it can monitor that for attachments that come in that meet criteria, so it can tell that it's an invoice and automatically capture the information off of that. It can also look for folders where things have been scanned into or other items, and based off of what it reads off of the invoice, as well as other mapping things where maybe the email address that it came into or other things, it can centralize the receiving of your invoices across your entities. So for instance, here I've had two invoices be emailed in, and I can see right from here across those two different entities. One is my USMF invoice, and it's verified that, and that everything checked out on this. But here's my USSI invoice. I can open that up and take a look and see that there are some issues of data that it couldn't read properly off that invoice. And so it's utilizing the Azure machine learning in this to compare this data to known vendor invoice data, to do its best to read the information off of that, to simplify data entry and improve that through. So it's double checking, did it read the purchase order number correctly? I could say, yes, it's good to go, for instance. Or, is this the right vendor? Can validate those things. Then once everything's come through and it's validated, then it can bring that invoice, the captured information, and the attachment all into Dynamics 365 and start the approval process, start the workflow to send that around. But it gives kind of a central intake for your accounts payable invoices for the many different methods of how you might receive those, scan those, get those emailed in, to be able to see that all within one spot across your different legal entities. But then once that's been confirmed and verified and sent in, it can follow separate workflows that might be necessary for review and approval across those entities, giving you both the idea of that invoice automation, but also a great place to centralize the receiving of your invoices themselves. This is also a spot where you can see on the right just some of the Copilot features or things here that's starting to come in. So if I had questions that I just wanted to ask without going to run reports or find things and count stuff, I might just say, hey, how many invoices have we captured so far this year? Something, a simple question here that I don't have to remember the report to go run or some other place to do this. My demonstration environment, right, it's pretty simple. There's only 3, but just being able to use natural language to ask questions. And this is starting to work not just within things like this, so quick query capability, but also even in helping design or ask questions of your data in Power BI or other things, to just use natural language with the power of AI to go through and help you find that data, build those reports without having to know things like table names or other things like that. And the last a couple of final things to bring things together is we don't see this as often in the, I've got a consolidation company here. We don't see this being needed as often for tribal enterprises, but Dynamics 365 does fully support that idea of creating consolidation and elimination entries automatically if necessary. So if you have entities that are utilizing your banquet services from your resorts, and those resorts are, you have one entity that's a customer of the resort and the resort is a vendor of the other, and you're creating that as resort revenue on one side and banquet expense on the other side. If there's a need to eliminate that at a consolidated level, and you want to not just see that in a report, but show those elimination consolidated entries, for instance, we do have a full consolidations module that's supported with Dynamics 365. So in that, you can create things, and this is what I was talking about earlier. If you needed to consolidate with import, if you have systems where they absolutely, your entities that need to maintain their own separate accounting system for a very specific business function, that if they can generate those trial balances to Excel, we can import those in very easily to start that consolidation process, or vice versa. If you needed to send this to something else, you can export those through this process. But specifically as well, we've got these elimination rules, and this just very highly sort of rudimentarily is saying, look, here are the account numbers for my intercompany receivables and payables, my intercompany expenses and revenues. So I want you to consolidate, create elimination entries in the consolidation company, so you can bring that into your financial statements to show each individual company as it is, but then also include this to show your eliminations as well for a truly consolidated report at the end. And what that ends up looking like, it can take a little bit to process those. If I come in and take a look at consolidation transactions that we've previously run, we can start to see your journal entries being created in the consolidation company, where it's backing out those receivables and payables and those intercompany related transactions across those, so you can include that in your consolidation reporting. And then speaking of consolidated reporting, one of the most commonly used features for that is like this idea of financial analysis across all companies. Here's a nice out-of-the-box Power BI dashboard. And we can even see the Power BI logo kind of spinning up there as it's starting. It is going to create a financial overview, all dependent upon what I've selected. So by default, I open this up just in my consolidation company, and it's showing me just data for my consolidation company. But I might want to quickly see other things. I don't have a lot of individual transactions in my consolidation company because that's where I'm logged in, but maybe I also want to incorporate now my main government company, my USMF. And now I can see here we've got our true budget to actuals, our trial balances across that. Go and see some things like my revenue and expense insights that's including that organization, the organizations I've selected, maybe my trial balance across those, balance sheet, other aspects there. But I can continue to update that simply by selecting more companies. So if I say, wait, I also want USSI incorporated in here.
And these are browser agnostic as well, aren't they, Matt? So these visualizations would load up on an iPad to be passed around in a meeting, or a Microsoft Surface tablet or something like that just as easily.
Yes, great point. I'm currently utilizing just Google Chrome to access this, but you can absolutely on your phone, on an iPad, utilizing Safari, Chrome, Microsoft Edge, anything like that, access, because it's just a URL. So accessing
Right.
that web page to run this report, because it utilizes the Microsoft Active Directory, it knows, as long as you're logged in, that you've been given access to see this data, regardless of where you're from. Again, you have to be logged in from a geography or a place where IT has allowed you to do so. There are access
Right.
controls that can prevent that. But assuming all those are in place, you can absolutely run these, see these on the fly. You're utilizing touchscreen functionality, you very easily to be able to see these then. And continue to create those consolidations that the more companies you select, you see it's adding that data, where there is data for those, into the organization. Or I could come up here and simply just select all. We see it refreshing now with data from each of the companies. We could see who's spending the most and making the most and everything, as I'm showing all on this, one quick entity, one quick look across all of my entities.
And this isn't anything extra for the Power BI functionality. This is included right with the product.
Yes, great point. You can, for all of these embedded Power BI reports, licensed users of Dynamics 365 get that full Power BI access for that data as well. Great point, John. And that brings us to the end of our presentation. So what we had prepared. So I'm sure there are some great questions or other things available. So, whoops, I apologize for, let's go ahead and get to that questions slide.
Yeah, this is a lot of information. The one of the questions that I had was in your past experience of switching a tribe over to using this platform, what kind of time frame are you talking about, and like who is all typically involved within the staff and the team, from the accounting team, executive management? What have you seen?
That's a great question. Obviously, with the complexity of the organization, especially for those that maybe are bringing over, looking to consolidate across their entities and multiple systems into one, as we've done before. I mean, you can bank that a lot of it's going to take at least a year, could be up to even a year and a half to get everything converted over. But for, if someone's just starting with the government, for instance, then bringing others on, or other aspects like that. We've seen that we've been able to do that in closer to like a 7 or 8 month time frame. It really depends on the complexity of that and how many different systems and folks are being migrated, into the system. And there's also the business process potential change of that. If you're just starting to incorporate more of a shared services model to be able to centralize things like payables and procurement, you're trying to man the change management of not only the technology and the process. You may choose to bite off smaller chunks of functionality and bring those over at any given time. The people involved.
I was going to ask that too. If it's
yes.
Like, if you've seen, you bring over one and then another and kind of build on it, that seems to that it would make sense to me.
Absolutely. You're going to have core financial aspects that you bring over right away, and probably some requisitions to begin with, but maybe some things like truly inventory management and warehousing, or project management and accounting. Some other aspects like fixed assets and things are oftentimes things that can come online later. You can continue to use some legacy systems for that as necessary, and then just kind of transition. You schedule that transition in a way that doesn't bite off too much at any one time to help with that change management approach.
Right. Yeah, I like that idea. And does one tribe have to be, a cloud service based in order to use this platform?
The Dynamics 365 solution is, for the most part, is cloud only. And so you don't have to already have been migrated and utilizing the Microsoft Cloud to do so. This could be kind of your first venture into that. But we have seen a lot of folks that have already been making use of Office or Microsoft 365 for a while and really like a lot of the functionality that's there. And so this does roll into that same tenant, as it will. It's a little bit easier to manage and those things, but you don't have to already be utilizing the Microsoft Cloud in order to deploy this.
Okay, awesome. Well, Matt and John, we have come up on our time. I appreciate you being here and walking us through this. I did put your email addresses and names in the chat. So please, anybody on the
Terrific.
call who has more direct questions, please reach out to them. You will get an email tomorrow with this recording that you can reply to me to ask questions or forward to your team to rewatch it, all the things. So with that, Matt, John, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you as well. Everyone have a great rest of your day.
All
Thanks a
right.
lot.
Bye, everybody. See
All
ya.
right, bye.